Einstein was a turd. Hawking is a fraud. NASA is a hoax. Coriolis is a bunch of bull. Take a look with your own eyes. It's the end of the ball. You know they're gonna lose it now. Babylon is falling. There's no room for the ball. Requiem for the ball. It's all over now. Babylon is going to fall.
Okay, we are live 7/18, 2024. Infinite Plane Radio, open phones for open minds. I used to say even open phones for closed minds, but not so much anymore. But we're sorting things out as we go. And generally speaking, most of our callers are on the same sheet in terms of skepticism as our primary position and philosophical posture when we examine the fake news. We're not debating is it real or fake. We're asking what is this simulated event for? We don't give them any benefit of the doubt, nor do we attribute any kind of divine or mysterious authorship to any of the content broadcast to the collective psyche, knowing that it's all part of a continuum as they write our history in advance and implement it on the world stage through PR stunts, psychological operations, and other such pageantry. We are joined by Nick Fingar, Osher, P. Trippa, American Fathers, Demetria 101. Consumed by AI says Disney got hacked today. First I've heard of it. Nick Fingar says, I saw Fly Me to the Moon. I want to watch it. Scarlett Johansson. She had a similar role, or similarly significant role, in Asteroid City, which, interestingly, is based on this character who's essentially Stanley Kubrick. So there's this kind of a tie-in between her, he, the staging of this UFO landing. I mean, it's all about, I think, the staged reality and all the stuff they fake. But the fact that she was in that movie and now this one is highly significant. I know Fly Me to the Moon isn't Kubrick literally faking the moon landing, but they reference him. And in reality, yeah, he was part of the moon faking department of the PSYOP entertainment complex. And it's far beyond did he fake the moon landing. No, actually he directed the 20th century and most of the major PSYOPs we've been confronting. In fact, this headshot thing against Trump that we've been talking about has always been a Kubrick production from our perspective, and by all indications, because predictive programming has authors, it has directors. It's not coming out of any kind of higher power or supercomputer or any other jumbled, mystified explanation. And I think it's important that we get real with this. If we're going to continue to assess reality from an informed perspective, we need to go ahead and start making distinctions between what Trutherville says is happening, what normies say is happening, and what is really happening when you take into full account the special effects, the simulation, the magic tricks, what I call being PSYOP aware. And you have to be PSYOP aware for everything you perceive. It's not like just these big flashy events. No, it's a stable posture, skepticism. It's not skeptical about this event or that event. No, you have to be skeptical about the medium itself. We are joined also by Frank Murr, Lord Laney, Lickety Split, Demetria 101. Oh yeah, your champion has arrived. I was just watching that. The RNC, Hulk Hogan, came out and gave a speech for Trump, declared Trump supporters are now Trumpites, and the next 4 years are going to be Trump-a-mania. Demetria says, yesterday, 7/17 was Disney's 69th anniversary. I wonder if there's a connection. Well, let me go back to this because there's a lot of talk right now about Kamala Harris. In fact, let me go to the Drudge just to give you a point of reference. Kamala rallies North Carolina. Top Dems believe Biden will step out this weekend. There's been this conjecture. But back in early June, June 15th, I had posted this. This is a clip that has the Donald Trump foosball character with the spot of blood on the right side of his head put into context. So, Fallout, Season 1, Episode 5, and this was only on the screen for a fraction of a second. But I tend not to miss anything when I'm looking at something for predictive programming, when I'm aware of who directed it. Not that I was looking for this in particular, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's Donald Trump with a spot of blood on the side of his head in a Christopher Nolan film, or Jonathan Nolan, Fallout again. And so, in the full context, you have Betty Pearson, Butler, Pennsylvania, the BP, which has the 216 code. And what the story is that she's essentially taken over Vault 33, a black female overseer, and the implication is that an outsider was elected, she came from 31, and this is some kind of a subversion or a coup. So now here's the clip. Norm finds out that the overseers are from Vault 31. So he finds out it's a coup, that the election had been rigged. All these leaders from Vault 31, or the overseers, are brought into 33. And my suggestion here is that this Betty Pearson character is Kamala Harris.
To step into Hank McClane's shoes.
Better luck next time, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is again in Fallout after this basically a rigged election, and they do this cleanup after a massacre, and the only evidence left behind that there was a massacre is the spot of blood on the Trump foosball character's head that they missed. And this was last month. So about a month ago, we were looking at this, and then moreover added to it that this was foreshadowing for this. It's her party now. They've been flashing this meme. There are a few other characters I think that would indicate a Kamala Harris. DMZ, another production from Netflix. I would even look to. I have a list. There's a litany because they've been drumming this into our heads for some time. Okay, moving on. Yes, Good Catch says consumed by AI. Well, when I saw this blood spot on the head, I thought, okay, look, this is another reason why we have to take it seriously that everything that we see in media is leading to very specific conclusions, and it's all targeting our subconscious because you're not meant to notice this consciously. Nobody's stopping and saying, hey, why is there a blood spot on this foosball character that looks like Trump? Like, this isn't something that most people are processing, but you don't have to. For the programming to work, I think you just have to be a passive receptacle, and most people are. So you have Big Brother's spigot of mis and disinformation just dumping directly into your subconscious, eyes wide shut. All right, Disney being hacked. Disney in chaos after major cyber attack puts thousands at risk. Hackers claim Disney data theft and protests against AI-generated artwork. Kind of a boring story. I like the one where Bing had to lobotomize their AI because somebody made a Mickey Mouse flying a plane into the Twin Towers. Hilarious image, however you look at it. And for some reason they thought this is too far. We have to restrict the ability of Bing to generate cool AI imagery. And I was thinking, isn't this kind of like some kid in the classroom draws something violent with his crayon, so now you have to take away everybody's crayons? I didn't agree with this. Messianic Charlatan says, Mike Rothschild blocked me, which proves he's Thomas Matthew Crooks. Why else? Why else? I saw the resemblance. Okay, moving on. There's quite a lot of news going on as we speak because the RNC but last night we brought up a few different topics, but I missed this one. This was posted in our Gilded Copacetic. Reagan equals Brady Bill. Trump equals red flag laws nationally. So there have been a number of parallels drawn between John Hinckley shooting Reagan, the Brady Bill, and again, Brady died, but 33 years later, they declared it a homicide. Has all kinds of hoax code attached to it. But we are making pretty clear here the connections between that shooting, inspired by Taxi Driver, and this recent shooting. And De Niro being there, and he was the assassin in Taxi Driver, and his films all happen to connect to this, as we were describing. But the consequence of Reagan being shot was the Brady Bill. And Trump has always been behind certain types of red flag laws. After David Cruz, with his MAGA hat and his tighty-whities in his backyard, dry firing his pistol, they made the case that gun laws aren't enough because the mentally ill are able to get the guns. And this is going to be used, I think, it seems like they've made the correlation between conspiracy theories, mental illness, and danger. So your mind viruses make you a danger to society. They played this, was it last year with Richard Card, the bowling alley shooter, which was a totally fake event. We broke that down as well. Robert Card, the suspect in Maine's deadliest mass shooting, where the idea is that he went into a, quote, Twitter bubble, and it turned him into a violent shooter. They've been building this narrative for some time, that the internet is a radicalizing agent, and that you can catch disease X. Now, he was in Lewiston, Maine. I remember writing an article about this, bowling for Lewiston, because of the comparisons in the narratives between bowling for Littleton and this. And this is a fascinating psyop because they recycled elements. But anyway, my point being, the main thing, mind viruses, turning people violent. Buzzing Fret said, IPS Tim, the term you coined for Vincent Fuchsia, QAnon hobo, brilliant. Yeah, you got this guy who's supposedly JFK Jr. in disguise, but he looks like an appropriately aged John Denver, which is weird because John Denver also died in a plane crash. And this is even weirder because in 2020, it's 2021, on 7/16, JFK Jr.'s death day, Sean Hannity went to a break playing a song by John Denver. And he said, this is for a friend named John who died in a plane crash. And it's on JFK Jr.'s death day, but he plays a John Denver song who also died. And then Vincent Fuchsia looks like an aged John Denver. Will the real JFK Jr. please stand up? You've got Vincent Fuchsia. Edward X is the new one. Negative 48, 107. I think there might be one other one. You got an Elvis running around too. Pastor Bob Joyce is pretending to be Elvis. It's pretty pathetic. If anybody's Elvis, it's Trump. Virtual Reality Witness said Vincent Fuchsia did not flinch one bit after the shots. It was a movie seat and he was one of the actors. Well, he was wearing a shirt that said George Magazine, which is JFK Jr.'s magazine, and on it said Dodging Bullets for one of the headlines. Now look, if I'm wrong about this, and if Vincent Fuchsia is JFK Jr. in a hideous costume, and like 4 inches shorter, and looking kind of like a hobo, if I'm wrong about it, I'll be the first to apologize. I don't necessarily believe he died on 7/16, the day Eyes Wide Shut came out. In fact, I don't want to get into it now, but there is this fascinating subtext in Eyes Wide Shut, which you could interpret as Alice and Tom Cruise's character, he and his wife going to this party, that they are Carolyn Bessette Kennedy and JFK Jr. going underground. The masks are a huge part of it. And I think you could continue with this line of thinking if you look closely at the movie Vanilla Sky, another movie that I think has a subtext. So what I'm pointing out here is I don't think that he necessarily died. It's too Kubrick. But do I think he's coming back to save MAGA? I'm not holding out hopium. I'm not really into that stuff. I don't touch it. But a lot of people do. We are joined by Thirst for Truth. Symbia, thank you for joining. This is the IPS Evening Deprogram, and we are auto hoax accelerationists here. We're not debating, we're not wondering, we're not confused. I don't know the source of this. No, we're not confused. We know what we're looking at. We're naming names. Speaking of Disney getting hacked, Disney hacked your minds, along with NASA and the space program. Here is Walt Disney hanging out with Werner von Braun. I would even argue that Elon Musk's Rocket Man persona, his SpaceX persona, is largely modeled off of von Braun. He's a composite character, as many of these world stagers are, but Werner von Braun wrote Mars, a technical tale about an Elon who colonizes Mars. The dictator of Mars is called the Elon, and they build a governmental structure analogous to the papacy, which is why we call him Pope Elon. And it's entirely consistent with this Saturn rocket being nothing more than a modern day obelisk, like the kind the Pope worships at St. Peter's Square. But Vincent Fuchsia and these others are super disingenuous, I just had to say. Especially Edward X. They're openly grifting on this idea. Like, if you look like JFK Jr., you could get yourself a fan base of groupies, and you could probably hold conventions. Go to Dealey Plaza and say your dad's coming back on the 22nd. He has all kinds of fans and groupies. It must really gnaw at him that he's undercover, he's in hiding. Meanwhile, other people are, kind of having what should be his. Sort of like Odysseus, and all the suitors are taking over his property while he's stuck out at the island. By the way, Calypso's still stuck in space. That is the name of the capsule on the ISS right now, and I don't know how they're going to get home. Should you be worried if the astronauts stuck in space? Calypso is the name of the nymph who keeps Odysseus stranded for 7 years before he's able to begin his odyssey. Which makes me think, and this is just by going off of the narrative clues in the script here, that the troubles with the mission, the Boeing Starliner mission, are going to begin when they leave, after their period of being stranded is over. So even though we've been distracted by stuff here on the ground, we have to remember that they're likely planning a major space-based immolation tragedy, possibly a 9/11. After being delayed, Boeing Starliner mission is finally set to launch. And then that's an old article. Trying to find out because it was scrubbed. We're waiting for some updates as to when they're going to be coming back. And I've seen some ominous articles suggesting that should they come back and should they have continued failures with their thrusters, they could come in at the wrong angle and burn up. Again, good luck, good job, Messianic Charlatan, getting blocked by Mike Rothschild. I'm proud of my blocked list. I wish you could display it. You know how on Twitter you have your photos, your posts, your replies. I wish they had your blocked, and you could have a little screen cap of every person that blocks you. Eventually, I'm going to print mine out and make wallpaper. I mean, that's just them ceding victory to you. Like, I lose. I can't do it. You win. And it's not like it stops you from looking. If you really want to read someone's tweets, you can. Tominoid says PayPal edicts. Oh yeah, a Papal or Papal and PayPal and Musk PayPal and its company X. X is the cross. Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just updated for the new age. Archaic old symbolism, old characters, recycled stories, recycled metascripts, and the modern metascript in our science fiction paradigm, which I call it Nasatology or scientism, is our dominant religion. Even though they are using that to program the masses into the future, they still overlap a biblical narrative over this thing. And you'll see with this Trump event, they're attaching all kinds of religious themes to it. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene today said that an angel in the shape of an American flag came down and saved Donald Trump. Let me go ahead and play that. Now, I don't think she believes it. She might, but I have a feeling that they're targeting the superstitious, the religious, and the credulous because they outnumber the thinkers. So these are the same people who will believe it when they fake an alien invasion. When people think, oh yeah, that flag wrapped up like an angel by accident.
Like God's hand is on his shoulder. Your thoughts?
I believe it. I believe we all witnessed a miracle, literally. From, before it happened, the flag above got blown in the wind and it got tied into literally what looked like an angel. Did you see that video?
I didn't see it.
Oh my gosh, you guys have to find that. It was truly, it was like an angel coming down, and it was the American flag tied. They had to bring it down, and all the people in the stands helped unravel it, and it was literally before he came out on the stage.
So before he came on stage, there was some kind of magic flag origami where it became an angel, and they had to lower it down and unfurl it. That was the flag that you saw over Trump's head, which was used to recreate the Marine War Memorial statue and the Braveheart movie poster, all in one shot. The photography is astounding. Again, the bullet whizzing by his ear, shot by the same photographer who recorded George Bush having the news of 9/11 whispered in his ear. And the ear thing is big. We were talking about this last night. The movie Thine Ears Will Bleed came out just before. It has a movie poster that looks like Trump's ear, all bloody. The predictive programming on this event, to me, vindicates, validates what we're doing with our predictive and concurrent programming analysis. I think we're putting it in the proper context, and it eliminates a lot of the fog over Trutherville, because it was only a couple of years ago where Palestine, Ohio gets the incident where it completely mimics or mirrors a Netflix movie called White Noise. East Palestine, Ohio, toxic airborne event, mushroom cloud, and this was in 2023. After train derailment, this is great. Look at these articles. Let me bring up these headlines. Axios. White Noise predicts more than the derailment. The eerie parallels between Netflix's White Noise. White Noise is set in Ohio. Photos show parallel between White Noise toxic airborne event and the event in East Palestine. White Noise shares eerie similarities, Rolling Stone. This is an example of predictive programming being noticed. But my point being, nobody in the mass media interpreted this correctly. They called it an eerie coincidence. Trutherville said, this is, quote, revelation of the method, when the dark wizards tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Which isn't how it works, because they didn't do it. It was simulated. This is a fake event. Trutherville doesn't get it, and they never will get it. They will blame it on something like dark wizards, dark occultists, before they approach the truth here, because they're actually guardrailing against that information getting out. But these are not coincidences, and there's been this flawed approach to assessing these events that has plagued Trutherville forever, which is why we left, because we know what we're looking at. We're not debating real or fake, we're analyzing the fakery. Oh, this is nice. The RNC is full of people wearing bandages over their right ear in solidarity with Trump. Fascinating. Didn't see this coming. Very random. Going through your comments. Mango Penguin says a massive collective lawsuit seems necessary. If you're talking about suing NASA for mental anguish, I agree. I'm scared of space junk. I can't sleep at night. I sleep with the helmet on. Launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew 9 mission is targeted for no earlier than mid-August. They keep pushing it back. They had to reschedule it because they need us all paying attention. I have a few theories about it. I posted this tweet yesterday. Nobody died, nobody cried. It was a magic trick. Total psychological operation. Most of you aren't ready for this. And I posted the Trump 45 shot glass with the bullet in it. And I was going through the comments, and for the most part, people are getting it, but the difficult thing is getting people to put the word staged in the proper context, and this is not information that will be acceptable or even comprehensible to 99% of the population, because they take for granted that what they see on the screen is a window to a distant place, a distant event. Just how manufactured, curated, and filtered it is escapes most people, and they miss the whole point of fakeability. So, with this in mind, one of my focuses from here on out is selling copies of Auto Hoaxology 101 and getting focused on the promotion, because I meant to kick off the promotion for this book this summer. So now is the time, and one of the reasons why I thought this would be the perfect opportunity is that while the general public is obsessing over who's going to be who's going to be president, they're going to be obsessed with politics. I thought while they're doing this, we will veer off world stage. We'll put all of our focus into consolidating real skeptics. If you don't have a copy of the book, I have a number of paperbacks. I'll put a link below. It's on the Ko-Fi. American Father says, they just did automatic alerts on my phones in my area to get us to look at the phones right now. Really, let me know. Because one of the things they have done is they have synchronized basically humanity, and we're effectively a hive mind in a way. I mean, look how fast this information trickled. Even though a lot of people seemed unimpressed or not all that shocked by it, it still managed to percolate very quickly to people who don't pay attention to the news. I heard about this from everyone. A lot of people are passive meme carriers and spreaders, mind virus super spreaders, and they don't know it. And this is my expression, and this is the best way I can explain it. If you don't have a mental immune system against propagated mind viruses, you therefore have mind aids. And the government media, government-controlled media, which it all is designed for people who don't have any resistance to their ideas. And I'll notice that the general population who are so afflicted will pick up mind viruses in a targeted way and spread them. So someone I know who doesn't care about the news, doesn't know what I think about all day, just completely not involved, say, hey, Trump just got shot in the ear. I'm like, wow, okay. They put this powerful psyop together, and everyone is just going to absorb it and propagate it. No one is operating on the premise that the news lies primarily, even though they may doubt the authenticity of the event itself. Okay, moving on. Caller says it was just a missing person thing. All right. And one other point, since you brought it up, alerts. Just because something is reported as breaking doesn't mean you have enough information to know it's all true, and therefore you have no reason to react to it. You're under no obligation to react. And the truther position is reactionary. Something's reported, they take the anti-stance. And I'm suggesting inactivism. You don't have to react. You can say, I'll decide if I believe it's real in 3 days. I need some time. Let me think about it. Instead of let me emote about it, which is what most people do. Here's a comment I missed the other day. Water Walking GJ Jesus said, Auto Hoax and Chill Ice Cream. I kind of like that. I'm more leaning towards IPS, some kind of energy drink. For some time, I'd been looking into obtaining some energy shot that we could possibly call adrenochrome. I don't know if there are issues with that, with the labeling, but I'm more leaning towards energy drinks. It's very easy to white label them, and I've been looking at distribution options, and I happen to have an eBay store, 100% rating, more than 1,000 sales in the last year and a half. So if I do invest in some kind of IPS themed something, most likely I'll sell it there, and in Ko-Fi as well. Okay, moving on. Lickety Split says Trump brought out the fireman's outfit that took the bullet instead of him, allegedly. Okay, well, there's this claim that he was shot in the chest, and I've seen this video or this photo where you can look up close, and it looks like there's a bullet hole in his chest, and I've seen it disputed. However, it does look like the one that Reagan got, so it might be a callback. P. Trippa says Trump has a stage of cubes. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention here. I mean, I have, but I haven't really talked about it because I'm consolidating everything. Amber Rose is interesting to me, wearing pink, some kind of script on her forehead associated with harvesting blood for life extension, hanging out with the head of the Satanic Temple. So they have a lot of that. And then, of course, the pyramid, the 1776, which is that pyramid on the dollar bill, is the Tower of Babel. I've described this before. 1776 AD is 5776 AL, which refers to the Masonic calendar. And 5776 in inches is the height of the pyramid. So here you have a couple of linkages. And then 1776 AL is when the Tower of Babel is constructed. That's when the construction begins, according to their lore. So the year 1776 relates to the building of the Tower of Babel and the beginning of America. And then further, you can connect the bill, the pyramid, and then also the One World Trade Tower being 1,776 feet high. The Tower of Babel is right there on your bill. So I'll be looking at the stage. I saw some Twin Towery stuff. And it's interesting that Hulk Hogan was there because we were just talking about the blading, how WWE characters cut themselves. And get this has got to be an inside joke. So Hulk Hogan was talking about how there was some championship where he's standing up on the stage and Trump is looking at him. So he said, the last time I saw Trump was on the sidelines. And this has got to be a tell. So Hulk Hogan is saying, the last time I saw Trump like this, it was at Hulkamania something, and I was bleeding from my face. He's looking up at me, and then I became the champion. And he says, when Trump wins, we're all going to be champions. Well, in wrestling, they use razor blades to cut their foreheads so the blood mixes with sweat. So what did he just allude to? He alluded to the fact that fellow WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump cut himself and was looking down with a bloody face, reversing their positions from years ago, 30 years ago, and he was like, I just remembered this. No, you didn't just remember this. This was a deliberate reference. And now Trump's going to win, or at least that's the story. It's a parallel story. If any of you were listening to that speech, we'll try to find Hulk Hogan. Maybe I can get some direct quotes here. Hulk Hogan brings down the house at the RNC. So again, at the end of this speech, he makes a reference to cutting himself and bleeding. It's an 8-minute and 46-second speech. Interesting. Very 9/11-y number. And most of you here know, if you've done your predictive programming homework, that Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, who was referenced here, did a lot of 9/11 predictive programming stuff. Now, let me see if I can find the direct quote here. Okay, here we go. We're going to find the part where he talks about the last time he saw Trump. And I believe I just found it. 35 years ago. He's known him for 35 years. And I'm going to play just a few seconds. A flashback.
Trump was.
He's claiming he had a flashback. This flashback, I think, is giving away the game here.
And this is really tripping. You know, the last time I was up on stage, Donald Trump was sitting at ringside at the Trump Plaza. I was bleeding like a pig, and I won the world title right in front of Donald J. Trump. And you know something? He's gonna win in November, and we're all gonna be champions again when he wins.
Now, the technique is called blading. So let me go back to blading. Blading explained.
There is no doubt that Abdullah the Butcher scars his opponents.
I have to wake up every day and look at this.
Now we're looking at a montage of wrestlers with bloody heads, and what he's explaining here is how when they cut themselves with blading, the blood mixes with sweat. And it was suggested that what Trump did was a classic act of blading, and then he looks down with his bloody face, and he's now the champion, or he's going to be. And so Hulk Hogan alludes to an analogous event where their roles were reversed.
This series. For the uninitiated among you, blading is the practice of cutting oneself during a wrestling match or a segment in order to produce blood, or to put it in cutesy wrestling terms, juice. Now, historically, the most popular way to produce this sanguineous sunny delight is with the use of a small razor blade to nick the forehead, which, due to the number of blood vessels present, tends to get the juice flowing like a birthday party during dry January.
So there you go. Trump was using the technique of blading, according to the opinion of many. And here we have Hulk Hogan talking about a time where he only could have been doing what? Blading. If he was looking down at Trump with a bloody head, he did this technique. And he's saying that this was followed by him winning the championship. Trump bleeding, looking down, is going to lead to his victory. I think this is a tell.
And like I said, I've known that man for over 35 years, and he's always been the biggest patriot, and he still is.
Anyway, Trumpomania is coming, according to Hulk Hogan. But yeah, in that little speech, I think he alluded to the fact that Trump also did a blading, and it's going to be followed up with a victory. All right, moving on. We talked about Betty Pearson as Kamala Harris. That's in Fallout. I'm going to watch The Prestige tonight, maybe Fly Me to the Moon tomorrow if I can. I was trying to watch The Adjustment Bureau. Someone called in and they suggested, watch The Adjustment Bureau. I turned on Netflix and Adjustment Bureau was the recommended movie. Yeah, I saw that. Copacetic says they're so close they blow each other kisses. Yeah, I saw Trump blowing him a kiss. It might be some Hall of Famer thing. All right, we're going through my minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. Trumpers wearing coverings over their ears. Brace yourselves. Body cam is being released on Monday of a police shooting of an unarmed black woman in Springfield, Illinois. My sources say the footage is pretty bad. This is Amir King. Rioting is expected. The deputy, Sean Grayson, is facing 3 counts of first degree in the death of Sonia Massey. First I've heard of this. I just noted it. Will there be riots? I don't know. It depends on whether or not they're funded and paid for. It could be a real event, could be fake. I need more information. Although, if they're trying to create outrage, there could be something here set up in this dynamic. We'll take a look and see. 33rd Olympic closing ceremony on 8/11. Looking forward to that. And I think 8/11 is the last day of the dog days of summer. And last year we had like Lahaina on 8/8, right? The closing ceremony will be organized by a movie company called Fulwell 73. Should be interesting. 73 is a very significant number in a lot of these different psyops. The Challenger exploded at 73 seconds, 1 minute 13 seconds. So 113 has a 73 connection to it in that sense. Also, it's EL, kind of as an ambigram. And aren't there 73 books in the Bible? The canon consists of 46 books in the Old Testament, 27 new for 73 in the Catholic Bible. There's a movie called From, where the characters are living through the 74th book of the Bible. Interesting show. But anyway, these Olympic ceremonies are always bizarre, ritualistic, postmodern, satanic pageantry masterpieces that you could just dissect and it tells you the future. Okay, here is MAGA's primetime speaker Amber Rose, dressed in pink, which is the color of not just Barbie, but the Whore of Babylon in this modern context, and that's who Barbie represents. So there's something here, I think, in the archetype they're introducing. Also, the name Rose has a lot of connotations to the same. The goddess, Rose Cross, Rosicrucianism. It's God Goddess stuff. So there might be something in this one. And again, Amber Rose is part of some company that I think they harvest the blood of donors for life extension purposes, or they were at least attempting this. And I watched an interview where she was talking to Lucian Grease, who is the Temple of Satan guy. Very strange. Mike Rothschild says the Trump shooter having a Discord account is not indicative in and of itself of any motive, or of him having been radicalized, without knowing how he used it or who he communicated with. It's just a person who used a platform that millions of other people use. This was said in response to Denise Wheeler, who said, the FBI has access to his phone and he has a Discord account. Because Discord radicalizes right-wingers, Reddit radicalizes left. In fact, I posted some facts here for Mike Rothschild. He didn't respond to me. 33% of Discord users become white replacement theory radicalized neo-Nazi mall shooters with terrible bowl cuts. And 13% of Redditors will become woke non-binary mass shooters targeting Christian school children. Some alarming statistics. Who was it that said that every hour on TikTok you become 17% more a Nazi? Was it Nikki Haley? I think it was Nikki Haley who said that. Nikki Haley said that every hour you spend on TikTok, you become, here it is. She made a claim, 17% more anti-Semitic for every 30 minutes someone watches TikTok. They become more pro-Hamas by doing that, according to Nick Haley. All right, moving on. I was just trolling Mike Rothschild, who's a major predictive programming denialist. He has no clue. He has no clue what's going on. Okay, here's a couple of things I picked up on. The fireman who died, Corey Compurator, had retweeted a Babylon Bee article that said Trump vows if elected he'll legitimize or legalize running over bicyclists. And many people are saying this is karma because he tweeted this article hours before he was killed. But if you look at some other articles, it says the former fire chief's final act was to shield his family members. Corey Compurator, man killed at Trump rally, died while shielding his family. So I'm just taking note of the word shielding as it relates to the Captain America Brave New World, where you have Harrison Ford as president being shot at and he's saved. And of course the shield is the signature weapon or device of Captain America. So there's some overlap there with that instance of concurrent programming. We can't call it predictive because the trailer came out the same day, but as noted, Brave New World, Captain America trailer has Harrison Ford as president surviving an assassination attempt. He even falls down on the ground on his face like Trump did. Harrison Ford in a theater, Ford Theater, Lincoln reference. Born 7/13, the day of the shooting, and Julius Caesar's birthday, which we connected to, of course, Julius Caesar, the play in Central Park in 2016 where they killed Donald Trump. And some may add to it, Mark Antony, lend me your ears. Virtual Reality Witness says MAGA is the highest level in the Church of Satan. Is that so? I think it's the Temple of Set. And the Lucian Grease guy is not part of the Temple of Set. And he's not part of the Church of Satan. The Temple of Satan is more like a goth wing of Antifa. They're purely political. They don't do black magic or any of that, or rituals or any of that stuff. It's just completely political. But the Temple of Set, which was an offshoot of the Church of Satan, was started by Michael Aquinos, who reportedly offed himself last year, which is unfortunate. I would like to have spoken to him about Mind Wars, where he defined how, and this was a PDF that circulated through the White House, Mind War, Michael Aquino. If you haven't read it, it's a must read. I'll put a link to the Internet Archive on my Minds.com account. But essentially it's this. It's the idea that the wars in the future would be done in such a way that they no longer destroy infrastructure or even have to kill people, but rather it's all going to be waged through the mind. Anyway, I'll put a link to it if you haven't read it. Michael Aquino, Mind War. Fascinating read, but I think it's not merely a hypothetical. I think it's something that was already in place before he even released it. It says here, the premise is that war is endemic to the human disposition. Mind War proposes to supersede its killing and destruction with a more civilized focus on the mind. This sounds exactly like what Polybius had wrote about the fickle masses needing the pageantry of religion and superstition to maintain the cohesion of the Roman state. Nothing new about it. So this is not new, but it says here, the document is an introduction to the concept of mind war and proposes its development as a new branch of the U.S. Army. And I would argue that this was 100% already implemented, if anything. So it's not even far-fetched, it's not even a hypothetical. Okay, let's see here. Messianic Charlatan says, Hogan yells, pandemonium running wild. Pandemonium is literally hell. Now, I think this ties into Barbie. Just bringing up Barbie and pink. Because in the movie Barbie, she goes through this membrane to enter the real world. And Barbie land, I think, is Babylon. And I think it's about the Babylon working. This goes back to Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard and all this. We talked about the symbolism of what I called the pink mass, which was the introduction of this new goddess to the masses through the idol worship represented by Margot Robbie's Barbie character. Margot Robbie was also in Babylon, by the way, which was based on Hollywood Babylon, which was a book authored by the co-founder of the Church of Satan. You can't separate Satanism from the sexual revolution, from the pageantry of our world stage. And when I say Satanism in this context, we really mean Thelema, of which Kenneth Anger was a part. But we're looking at the word pandemonium here, and in the Barbie movie, the creators of Barbie at Mattel had this building which they described as phallic, which is all highly, again, symbolic, the wizards at the top of this tower. And they told Barbie to get back in her box because chaos had been released into the world when Barbie Land merged with the real world. So they're saying, get back in your box, and she wouldn't. And I realized, okay, this is another archetype. You have Eve bites the apple, evil loosed into the world. You have Pandora and her box, Pandora's box, opens the box, unleashes chaos into the world, pandemonium. So I think there's a connection here. When they say these words, it's definitely not coincidental. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Yeah, pandemonium is the capital of hell. Fascinating. But yes, the idea of chaos being unleashed into the world is inherent in the whole Babylon working anyway. The whole premise of it was that they were unleashing the energies that would define the new aeon. And this meant massive changes to the human psyche, to human civilization, and that's where we see everything represented in progressive utopianism, which is clashing with trad right values. Okay, moving on. Pete Trippa says, the filming of the stage right now for Trump reminds me of the Dizzy soundstage, The Volume. I'll take a look. I'll have to do a comparison. Ted Stryker says, if Trump is the Antichrist, why do his supporters ask God to bless him? Which God? I've been thinking about that. I mean, I was looking at the G, the Masonic G, and some say it stands for God. Others say it stands for geometry. I've heard another one, geometry of divinity, or grantor of dominion. I've heard so many examples, but never do I associate, when someone says, do you believe in God, do I think that they're referring to the right entity. Okay, amber is a color in itself, says Ollie Goering. Trump kissed the fireman hat. 27 was his number. Good to know. Copaesthetic says Superman is filming in Cincinnati. Ohio is big right now in the Metascript. And remember, it was East Palestine, Ohio, with a toxic airborne event, which I think might have been foreshadowing for something that may be happening soon, perhaps even in Gaza. But Deprogrammed Truther says evening all. It's almost an oxymoron, because the truthers are the programmed counter to the lying media, and Trutherville is anything but truthful. But deprogrammed truther, I'll go with it. We have to go with deprogrammed. You're deprogrammed if you are weighing the information for its own validity and not just taking sides. We are informed disbelievers, not low information disbelievers, and especially not low info believers. We know more about the stuff the believers believe in when we don't believe in it. It's kind of, you're like, what shape is the solar system you believe in? And they're like, I don't know. Is it round? Is it a ball? No, your solar system is not a ball. It's not a ball solar system, it's flat. Unless you count Pluto as a planet, and it's like, it's always going back and forth. Is it a planet? Isn't it? But it's 17% below the ecliptic plane, which is why it rules the underworld. Elephant Tusk says, can we get some jackets with penguin logos on the back and say Osmond's Army? I think we need to avoid the word army. Perhaps. I mean, I'm kind of into the idea of, like, we had auto hoax armies. It's an idea, but we're not engaging in the info war. This is a very peacenik position. If anything, we have to come up with a new term. But I like the idea. In fact, I am working on getting some jackets, as in for the press. Members of the iPair Press Club are going to likely be wearing some kind of. I've seen these pretty nice windbreakers that I can order, and to just say press on the back and have the company logo. But yeah, I'm kind of into the idea, but I want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up, because you'll note that there's been this concerted effort to create this notion in the minds of the normies that conspiracy theorists are radicals who are ready to go to war with the media. And no, we're not anti-media. We are what I call parallel media. Parallel media. We're not involved in the reaction, the anti. We don't need to breathe their air. In fact, we don't need them. We're outside observers. We're alien anthropologists. We're the only objectivists on the plane, or whatever. Prove me wrong. Find me an objectivist who does not filter their perceptions through the screen, granting it an automatic argument from authority. Like, if your worldview is in any way filtered through mass media that you're not reality testing, you're not an objectivist. You're a believer. You have accepted the existence of reality augmentations, hyperstitions. Ms. L says, I don't see the curve on my international flight. Only curverts claim they see the curve. You can't see it. You're just not big enough. You'll never be big enough, and you'll never be high enough to see it. The curve is in your mind. The worldview is curved, but the world is not, because the map is not the territory. The people who insist that it is have undergone an epistemological inversion. their head has gone through the screen. They're in the box. We've stepped out of it. And I'm like, well, look, if the physical counterpart to the internal construct doesn't line up, which one wins? Does real define our existence or fake? And fake has trumped real. We were born into a deceived realm. Every person is programmed in the same way. Most people don't test the boundaries, so they don't know where the fakery begins and where the real ends. Kind of like in the Truman Show. Seemed real, but he never tested the boundaries. He was obedient. He listened to the liars. What if he was a problematic person, a psychopath even? He might have broken something. He might have upset their ability to even maintain the cohesion of the theater. He might have burned it down and found the exits. But no, he was completely obedient. And until he was willing to rebel, he would never have seen the edges of the thing. He wouldn't have realized that he was within a container. And that's where most people are. So the MSM worldview is quite literally the Truman Show. And they know some people are going to wake up a little bit. So they create alternatives for them. And that's what we call Trutherville and Woketown. But they're all part of the same show. I'm not in the show. I'm not saying, what about the shooter on the water tower? What about the DEI hires? This was allowed to happen. No way it was staged because somebody really died. No, you're confusing the model with the real thing. And in this model, they introduce simulations. And this is just like in the movie Westworld, or even in Hunger Games, where the elite gather around this circular table that has the world that the programmed live within. And I'm not participating in their Hunger Games. I'm not in their Westworld simulation. I'm not a synth. So I don't respond to their hyperstitions as though they are real. I recognize a magic show for it being a magic show. But you see all these misdirected minds questioning, well, this was allowed to happen, or it was an inside job, or it was staged, or how dare you say it was staged, somebody died. It's like none of them have a clue. And they can't say how dare you because they don't have the moral high ground. The true believers in the propaganda, in the terror propaganda, in the MK Ultra mind warping propaganda, lost the moral high ground when they ceded the intellectual high ground, when they became believers and stopped thinking for themselves. They become part of the problem. In fact, you could say they're terrorists. If you're spreading the mind warp propaganda around, which is being used to terrorize people into compliance, into complete subservience to the apparatus, to the false worldview, then you're kind of a terrorist. Sort of like if you were preaching fire and brimstone, doomsday, religious programming to your children, you could argue such a person is a terrorist. You could make the same case for this. Just saying, only skeptics have the high ground here. The non-skeptics are questioning all these different theories that explain what could be, but none of them begin with the premise that maybe it didn't even happen. Maybe it was a magic show. Here's an excellent quote by Frank Herbert, Dune Messiah. Quote, "They're trained to believe, not to know. Belief can be manipulated. Only knowledge is dangerous." And one of the things they've done is they have targeted this psyop at the religious. And that's why you have people seeing miracles, like angels, wrapped in American flags, blocking bullets. But they didn't save the firemen. Okay, moving on. Kuabear91 says, ex-truther Chalk Body Outline has come out and declared the Trump event to be real and genuine. He says he saw zero smoking gun evidence of fakery and believes some liberals are crazy enough to do it. Well, where's his evidence that it's real? Where's his evidence that it's real? The burden of proof is on the media to prove that it's real. And one of the things that undermines the claim that it's real is the loads of predictive and concurrent programming, unless you're willing to say, hey, 5 years of hardcore predictive programming intensifying in the last 3 months, and all these movie releases that correspond with this very event to the point where we were predicting it is a coincidence. It was a real event. No, predictive programming never presents a real event. Goes on to say, he called out IPS and said Chalk and his crew with EBT of 5 years ahead of the curve and see it was real. No, it wasn't real though. That's the thing. It was totally fake. Fake until proven real. Are you a media advocate? Do you think the media reports news? No, it doesn't. It's not a window to the world showing you something happening at a distance. It's a filter, and they are producing an event. They're not informing you, they're conforming you. How do you explain this? How do you explain Robert De Niro giving the exact speech in a movie as a senator, a xenophobic senator, being shot at? How do you explain the multiple correlations between just that movie and this event? That's a big one, especially since Trump didn't even exist in the form De Niro was foreshadowing for 7 or 8 more years. He said it looked impossible to fake. Okay, let me bring this up too. When you go to a magic show, let's say you sit down in your seats and you're looking at the magic show and this magician is totally skilled. Sleight of hand, misdirection, all of it. Bunnies out of hats, chopping women in half. You can't determine how he did any of these things, or he's levitating. If you can't figure out how he does it, or he pulls a quarter out of some kid's ear, like, wow, mind blown. I can't figure out from my seat how he pulled a quarter out of a child's ear. Therefore, it's real. I can't figure out how they faked 9/11 jumpers. Therefore, it's real. I can't figure out the special effects. How did NASA get the guy to eat the floating Skittles? Must be real. No, you have to get out of your seat. You have to go backstage. You have to read the magician's manuals. And if you're not informed about how it was done, it doesn't mean therefore the lie holds. Not at all. You have to suspend judgment until you have enough information. So I would say you don't have enough information to debunk it. Not at all. And for you to debunk it, you have to contend with the predictive programming first, which suggests, like every other fake event, and when I say every event, capital letters, every other event that's fake is preceded by predictive programming. Why is this different? Oh, it's real. Okay, then next thing you're going to say is, well, this next moon landing was real. The previous ones are fake, but now it's real. I don't know how they could have faked it. Oh, because they fixed their special effects? Maybe they hire Christopher Nolan to do the next moon landing, and now we can't debunk it because they figured out all the errors from the first one. Are you going to go with it because now it looks convincing and real? Just because it looks real doesn't mean it's real, and this is going to become an important point as we move forward as their special effects improve. Mango says Tim's podcast is all we need. And yeah, look, it's true. All you need is skepticism, suspension of judgment. I would challenge anyone saying it's real to prove it to me. Messianic Charlatan says, LOL, Chalkbody outlined my final hope for conspiracy journalism after us. Flush him, he's Tucker Carlson now. Well, it means he's on the wrong side of the screen. That's all it means. I mean, you could say I'm incredulous that they faked it, but that's not enough to say it's therefore true. Like, I can't prove, or rather, I can't debunk the globe sitting right here, therefore I must accept it. Well, what about agnosticism? What if you don't trust the sources? I don't trust any of the sources. You're telling me that Vincent Fuchsia and other January 6ers are hanging out behind him? You're telling me that in this real event, the photographer who photographed the SS guy whispering in George Bush's ear also photographs the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear by his 9/11 hat? The overlapping coincidences. You're telling me in this coincidence, these bumbling Secret Service agents doing this Three Stooges routine perfectly line up with Trump's fist raising the flag to recreate the Marine War Memorial and the Braveheart movie poster. And the flag's perfectly aligned, where if you superimpose it, you would have Trump's social media avatar which has a 9/11 encoded into it. No, there are so many overlapping coincidences. This is 100% theater and pageantry. If you can't tell that, your reality impaired and your judgment's impaired, or you have the wrong operating system. Maybe you don't know. And that's fine. Most people don't know. No time to apply fake blood. How do you know? How do you know? Do a minute by minute breakdown. And just because you don't know how the magician does the trick doesn't mean magic. It means you don't have enough information yet. But if your default is, if I can't debunk it, it's true, you've become a media advocate. You've accepted a burden of proof that doesn't belong to you. Lean Dion says the fake ear wound looked faker and is easier to pull off than the mass shooting stuff. Now, I have a little background in film studies. In fact, we watched Kubrick films. We watched Clockwork Orange and Hitchcock films. And I think that's when I really grew to love doing what we're doing here. And at the time, I was heavily into special effects of Stan Winston, Cronenberg, and what I mean is like the synthetic effects, not the digital stuff, but where they use prosthetics, where they have squibs, and everything you saw is very basic Hollywood special effects. I mean, it's not even impressive. They could have done a lot more. You can have squibs implanted beneath the skin, remotely detonated. They could have done a number of things, but what they did there, I think, there's a number of explanations. But Kuber91 says, Chalk says if you auto-hoax, you're just schizophrenic. Well, auto-hoax means that I don't trust the screen's authority, and I need to test its claims against outside information. What's wrong with that? You're saying that you should automatically believe? I would say if you automatically believe a source, you're kind of schizo. It's like, if you're going to use that term, and schizophrenic means essentially a break away from reality. And you could make the stronger argument that people in a religious cult collectively have a schizophrenic break from objective reality. This is true for Normieville. This is truer for Trutherville and Woketown. That is a break. But when you step away from the screen and you insist on the primacy of reality over the impositions, over the augmentations, then you're moving in the direction of aligning your internal and external experience, which is the opposite of a breakaway. So no, I would say, if anything, we've made a move towards mental health. And if you can't tell real from fake and you're confused by the screen and you think that this pageantry is real, I would say you're crazy. I would push it back. All right, let's move on. And I'm fine with this too. I pointed this out. I said, as we move into the summer of 2024, we want to separate from Trutherville. Anybody still huffing chemtrails and auto-believing programmed counter-narrative talking points, we need them off the raft. Not that they ever go to the raft. I mean, what we need to do is we need to fully break away from Trutherville for a reason. We need to create a self-aware demographic that is distinct from the confused. I'm not confused. I'm not confused at all. And the fact that someone's looking at it, I'm not sure if it's real, maybe it's real, to me, that's the equivalent of saying, well, maybe the next SpaceX launch will be real. All the other ones have been fake, but the next one, the special effects are just they're just believable. The special effects are so believable, I believe it. Terrible argument. Anyway, moving on. It's all about getting the right operating system, getting rid of belief systems, and again, becoming the sole arbiter of what you believe. We live in a news-bent reality. That's a fact. They are writing these events decades in advance and acting them out on the world stage. Okay, moving on. I totally respect people's opinions. I'm just pleased to hear people expressing them because we want the division. We want to have that schism within Trutherville. It's one of the things we're here to do. All right, we talked about Kamala Harris embodied in Betty Pearson. and the whole shooting event, the blood spot on Trump's head. Going through my feed here, I went out to the top of the Sandia Crest today, and I did some watercoloring of this cabin at 10,300 feet. I'm still working on it. Here's a picture. Because I have all these people who say I need to touch grass, or let me respond to this comment, because I spent the day doing what I call cloud studies. I'm trying to learn how to draw clouds and paint clouds. So I'm looking at clouds all day long, and I got this comment. Stanley Dent said, "You're 100% wrong. Modern airplanes are too efficient to produce contrails. Chemtrails are the easiest conspiracies to prove. All you need to do is look up. You're controlled opposition and a shill, or you're not that smart. All I need to do is look up." And I'm just bringing this up that I was looking up for at least 3 hours today, and I didn't see any chemicals in the sky. But I put a post up just kind of as a joke. I posted an image of the sky full of clouds, and I said, "God, what a terrible, unsightly travesty. I hate mankind. Look what we do. Hashtag chemtrails." Because the cloud shouters post stuff like this all the time. They post the most gorgeous pictures of the sky, and then they outrage about it. I'm so mad at these clouds. Very quirky cult. Anyway, if you go to parallelmedia.org, you can read more about our big picture here, what we're doing. Fake mainstream media and fake alternative media constitute the world stage fictional universe. There is no platform for media skeptics outside of networked individuals and disparate communities like ours. So we call this growing body of non-mainstream and non-alternative media the parallel media. And skepticism, common sense skepticism, is what we're bringing to the picture here. So it's pretty well explained in what is mostly I'd call this a manifesto for the emerging parallel media and why you want to be a part of it. The IPS think tank is not going to merge or fit in with lying media infrastructure. We are opposing it. But first we need to grow the parallel media to about 10K. I suspect there are many more. But this has to be a separate body from the controlled alternative. Auto-hoaxing and real media skepticism have never been broadly platformed. It's always been thriving here on the fringe. So what we have here is a think tank that forms the core of this emerging separate body, and the explanation for our approach and why we engage it, everything is explained succinctly in Auto-Hoaxology 101, which you can order from my store or you can order on Amazon, and I'll put a link below. And there's a few reasons why you should want to do this. If you recognize that we are in a mind war and people live in a state of inner turmoil, chaos, or fear, or apathy about things that they do find to be terrifying, the benefits to approaching it the way we do is eliminating a lot of this climate angst, World War III angst, and the side effects of believing in the atrocity propaganda. Like, if you live in a world where somebody just shot at the president and blatantly just killed somebody and the Secret Service was in on it, that we just about had a JFK, if you think that was real, you're probably panicking right now. You're probably reaching for your ammo. Meanwhile, we're reaching for our popcorn. And if you believe the stuff of the world stage, it necessarily drags you into a nightmare version of the clown show. And a lot of people are hooked on it. But epichy in Greek philosophy, suspension of judgment, a principle espoused by non-dogmatic philosophical skeptics. They propose that when controversy arises, an attitude of non-involvement should be adopted to gain peace of mind for daily living. Peace of mind, what's wrong with that? Mind war casualties are emotionally invested, reactionary, and they fall prey to all manner of media fakery. And they have nothing to show for it but poor discernment, an inverted epistemology, and worst of all, they lose their peace of mind. You can't believe Trump just got his ear pierced by an AR-15 and have peace of mind. You don't have peace of mind. You may play it off, but you're scared. If you believe in any of the hyperstitions, you're scared. If you accept any of the God constructs, if you believe in nukes, which is a God construct, and you worship that God by facing the black cube TV screen, getting under your desk, and quivering. It's a form of genuflection. But it's a God construct, just like the ancients have always used, the pageantry, the terror of gods, to keep the unruly masses under control. And I'm not under their control. And if you believe any of their stuff, you are. And that's shameful, especially if you're a truther. I want to bring this up. From June 22nd, Trump was giving a speech at Temple University. Philadelphia police officers shot in the head in North Philly, blocks away from Temple, as Trump was speaking. So Temple, headshot, officer shot in the head, Philadelphia, a few weeks before. Thought that might be an instance here of foreshadowing, especially when you look at who highlights these things. Just a little bit of a flashback. We were talking about this. This was back in June. This is June 27th. Nick Fuentes, who's a terrible human being. Here he is saying to Alex Jones,
they have thrown everything short of assassination at him. That's one way to look at it. If there's kind of an escalating menu of options that they could do to prevent an individual man from taking power, prevent this campaign that he's been on, they've done everything short of that. Impeachment, lawfare, they've gone after his family, they've lied about him in the press.
They played every card but assassination.
So here you have them hyping it up, hyping it up, hyping it up, making it believable. And this is why they do it. They need it to be believable for believers, like Chalk Body Outline, who responded appropriately to all the preconditioning that was boring neuropathways to get him to accept something unbelievable as believable. I didn't fall for it. You didn't fall for it. Here's another one, more foreshadowing. Terminator 2 Judgment Day, 33 years old on 7/3. We talked about the number 7/3 as it relates to this in particular. You know, the One World Trade Tower opened on 1/13. Challenger explodes 1 minute 13 seconds. The connection here has to do with the Deep Sea Challenger that James Cameron, director of Terminator, was on 9/11, visiting the remains of the Titanic, which represents the West. But tying it all together, Terminator 2's 33-year anniversary came to our attention because, of course, it has the one-eye symbolism. And we were also talking about Terminator 2 because the person who filmed the Rodney King beating had just been filming Terminator 2 about an evil cop doing evil things. He's recording James Cameron at work. His name's Holiday. He looks like James Cameron. He's walking down the street and he sees the beating and releases it, then the riots happen. So these are all connected narrative threads, but the symbol of, and this is from June. So I'm just pointing out how leading up to the event, we were talking about this. One of the heads of the beast had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. And here's Trump, fatal wound, Apollyon, the destroyer, the Terminator, rising. I think this is pivotal. I believe that this Trump event is pivotal because this is the one I think that will break all of the wrong explanations that have been purposefully planted for truthers when it comes to staged events. This is going to make it pretty clear that you're going to have to make a choice here. You know, you're going to become a skeptic, or are you going to consciously choose to suspend your intellect and trust the sources that they're not lying? And like, how do you get away with that? How can you? Now look at this. Close-up footage of Thomas Crook's shot perfectly centered on Trump's head. Where is it centered on? Where we said it would be, on the 47, where Robert Cremo had the 47. And the target here alludes to Joker in Full Metal Jacket, the Kubrick film. Joker is JFK. There's plenty of Oswald references in that. But I'm pointing out that this is what we were expecting exactly, again, because we were reading the programming. We predicted the end of this movie. We predicted this major plot twist. Copacetic says Republicans are now going to champion mental illness reform. Right, we need to keep an eye on how this thing is going to be played. I do agree that there's a mirror between this event, the Reagan event, which suggests that the Brady bill is going to connect. Someone posted this. This is Frank the Bunny with his eye wound and Trump with his eye wound. Both of them with 2 streaks of blood coming down. But this is from Donnie Darko. Predictive programming is evidence, by the way. It is a clue, and it is indicative of what's to come because it's part of a contiguous whole. CNN Van Jones said, quote, "A bullet couldn't stop Trump, a virus stopped Biden. The Democrats are coming apart, the Republicans are coming together." He's right about it. Who's this? A lot of people are sharing this image. Matt Gaetz has had his face adjusted. Not sure what to make of it. Very masky. Not sure at all. Anyone? There's a whole collection of people on Trump's side. It's like, I don't know. They're all getting the same plastic surgeon, but they're looking faker and faker as time goes on. Even J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance looks very masky. Okay, Mango Penguin says, chemtrails never bothered me. Coast to Coast started it. Well, there's no such... Yeah, I'm glad it didn't bother you. It's useless to be paranoid about something that can't hurt you. It's a waste of bandwidth, waste of time, and it leads to psychosomatic and nocebo effects. Your mind can influence what you could give yourself chemtrail lung. We don't need that. So I had this conversation with Plain Decoded. He said, we're talking about predictive programming and synchronicity and all this. And I think it's important to make these distinctions now before we move forward here. The evidence demonstrates the nature of media to be a contiguous whole despite different platforms, different media, whether it's entertainment, printed, video, or soap opera on the political world stage. It's all part of a unified whole. And the repetition in messaging is an advanced form of propaganda and advertising, and it always leads to fake events. At no point does predictive programming lead to something real. So if there is a higher power involved, or if it's something beyond man, it doesn't make sense that it would offer its services in advancing leftist propaganda talking points and would involve only simulated events. It falls apart. So I think it's important to make these points now as we move forward because we have the right approach to interpreting media and we need to maintain that because we're the only ones doing it and this needs to be our platform. So if you ask any truther about any of these things like the predictive programming, it's lost on them, but it's not lost on us. So for example, and this is just a friendly conversation we had in our Discord server, I'm not saying synchronicities don't happen, but what I'm saying is that what we see on the news is totally contrived and it has nothing to do with you. For example, we're talking about the predicting, or rather pinning, all of these eerie coincidences like white noise. White noise predicted East Palestine. That's because it's the same production company. That might be the simplest way to explain it. The companies that create the fake events are part of the same unified whole. I call it the PSYOP entertainment complex. But we have evidence on our side, and this Trump event finalizes it. Between this and Leave the World Behind, I think we have everything we need to maintain this position. A couple of other weird things. Matthew McConaughey, Kevin Mooring posted it, has his right eye swollen shut because of a bee sting. He was the voice of Agent Elvis, and he came out after the Uvalde shooting, but he has Elvis connections. He was the voice of Elvis in the Agent Elvis thing. He has a son named Levi, but Synchromorpheus points him out as another Antichrist figure, and he may run for political office. Interesting all around, but yeah, there is some kind of connection here. And someone else pointed out that Danny Trejo was in a parade and somebody threw a water balloon at him. Well, what's the significance of this? Well, Danny Trejo was the assassin in Machete. And so you have this JFK-like situation where he's having a balloon tossed at him, and he bum rushes the kid who threw the water balloon, who happened to be 20, which connects to the shooter who is 20. And of course, Machete proceeded in as we've described that event, and it was portrayed by, the character was portrayed by Danny Trejo, who was the patsy. So you have this patsy shooter connection, age 20, and a parade with a balloon being lobbed could symbolize a shooter, and a shooter not surviving, or shooter not succeeding, because of course Danny Trejo attacked him. So anyway, that seems like it might be a PR stunt, part of the buildup. Trump media stocks soar after the assassination attempt. How much did they soar? How much in percentage points? Put it in the chat below. It's a pop quiz. How high did his stocks soar for his media company after the shooting? If it's real and organic, you shouldn't be able to answer this correctly. Okay, let's see. Tominoid says Trejo and De Niro are in heat together. Trump is speaking now and he's using his... Okay, interesting. I'll check it out in a minute. Travis Cloud, Mazel both say, and Dimitri 101. Yep, correct. Trump media stock soars 33% after assassination attempt. How'd you know? Okay, here's some connections that are worth getting into. Butler County Sheriff calls on lawmakers to make it a state crime to be an illegal immigrant. Remember this sheriff. This was shared by Copacetic. So this sheriff has been in the news a few times. We've talked about him before. But he was making this statement about illegal immigrants, which has a connection, of course, to Ohio. Butler and the Machete, who was an illegal immigrant during the shooting. But we're looking at the big picture here, and it seems like Ohio is starting to show up more and more. Here's a picture of Trump, where it looks like he took a shot in his chest. Probably alluded to this. Hinckley's final bullet ricocheted off the limousine, flattened into the shape of a dime, and struck Reagan 5 inches below his left armpit. That kind of matches this, 5 inches below his armpit. Probably an intentional parallel. History rhyming. And we still don't have all the information. So for those who are saying it's real, you don't have all the information, and we're still compiling confirmation that this was fake. That it was a scheduled event. And this is the mind-boggling part. How many different movies led up to this? How many movies were released as this came out and perfectly aligned with it? Captain America, The Boys Season 4, Episode 8. How many times have we said 4-8 and 8-4 are directly correlated to this Trump thing, as per Jurassic Liars and all the different connections he's made? The 6/11 connection, the fact that it was 6/11 when the shooting happened. Anyway, I think we're past the point here of debating real or fake. We're talking now, what's the purpose of this simulation? Because it's all fake. And if you have something else to go against that, please call in, let me know. Let me know what isn't fake. Now, when I say everything's fake, I mean extraordinary claims. They don't have to lie about literally everything. Elephant Tusk says a lot of people are saying an actor is playing Vance with a mask. Agreed. I'm noticing a lot of people are not really skeptical 100% or completely, full-blown auto hoaxers, but their skepticism is kicking in. But the problem is that if you're skeptical within the box, it doesn't go far enough. It can't lead you to the truth. And this is where truthers are. It's a conundrum. Truthers are in this box where their skepticism is only directed at one side, not at their own. And that is their downfall. That is what keeps them locked in the box. What keeps them shackled to the program, and the reason why they're still programmed, is that their skepticism isn't aimed at their own sides, propagandated narratives. It's only at the other side. It's selective skepticism. Each side sees the other side as a conspiracy theorist. One more example. No way this was staged. Maybe an inside job, but not staged. So a false flag. Nope, false flags never happened. And I said, are you sure about that? And I shared this with them. And of course, you have to engage in some pretty intense cognitive dissonance to not see that this is far too specific for the event to have been real. Just in, Trump confirms a chunk of his ear is gone, and it happens to match the Atlantic. And this is one of 10,000 examples we can point to. Joined by Blood Raven. Thank you for joining. I'll be opening up the phones later most evenings, not at the start, to make sure we get all the important information out. Blood Raven says water tower. Yeah, let me just let you know. Any second shooter theory needs to go. Forget about it. Nobody got shot. No real bullets were fired. It was a magic trick. If you're looking for the water tower, it's because they told you to look there, because they need you to debate the facts of the event. They don't want you to question the event itself. So they have the staged event where they stage Trump getting shot. They simulate it. It's a magic trick. But they also put other characters there and other rabbit trails. So the people who don't believe, I don't trust the news, something else is going on. Oh, look, a second shooter. Oh, look, a third shooter. Oh, look, another shooter from behind. Just like Kennedy. Who shot Kennedy? Was it Lee Harvey Oswald? Was it the FBI? Was it the mafia? And they create these different spin-offs, and the point of it is that the truthers run down these different trails, following breadcrumbs, they're following truther chicken feed, and they're running away from the central fact, which is it's a simulation. I have a breakdown in Auto Hoaxology 101, which is the MSM mainstream view, the mainstream mediation. The basic view is the one that you see on TV. The ones who add stuff, second shooters, that's called MSM plus. The problem with MSM plus is you didn't subtract. You didn't take the negative route. You're adding. So you're adding onto with the presupposition that everything else is already real. You're adding on to lies. You have to subtract the lies first. So if you're looking for second shooters, you're being played. Don't fall for it. Undercover CIA handler said the shooter didn't get killed. No, of course not. There are no patsies. The story is this. They brought out a patsy, MK Ultra, and he shoots the president and they shoot him before he can talk. That's a classic false flag narrative to hide the fakery. They've been doing this trick forever. I mean, there were two Frank Sinatra movies, Suddenly and Manchurian Candidate, that preceded the JFK assassination that were both said to be inspirations. They said these movies caused Oswald to do it. My point is that they use movies to soften people up to narratives so they find things believable. And you're not being skeptical if you're basing your assessment on the news is reporting events as they actually happened. You have to account for the sheer fakeability of it. So nobody died. The fireman didn't die. Trump didn't get his ear pierced. And the shooter was not a patsy. The shooter's an actor. The BlackRock thing should tell you everything you need to know. He's an actor. And here's a rule of thumb. It's axiomatic. Anything they can fake in the movies, they can fake in the news. Literally anything. Trump is a WWE Hall of Famer. What characterizes WWE? Oh, that's right. Stage magic, theatrics, acrobatics, simulated violence, simulated wounding, simulated blood pouring out of people's heads. The WWF has mastered the art of simulated violence, where people had to be told it was fake. So you have to remember, is it fakeable? Tell me it's not fakeable. Oh, there's no way you could fake an ear injury. I don't think you've done your homework. And that's one of the things we do here, is we do our homework in assessing what is fakeable, what special effects do they have at their disposal. I mean, they have amputee crisis actors to simulate legs being blown off. You have to think outside of the box and include special effects in your assessment. And if you can't figure out how something was done, and your default is therefore it was real, your head is through the screen. You're on the wrong side. Copacetic says it looks like a red flag over the mind, the Supreme Court there to rule on it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you see anybody talking second shooter, you should know that they've taken a path down that has been paved for them to lead them to endless speculation and to let them assume the event really happened. And so, in other words, they've been sold on the program. And I'm 100% deprogrammed. Like, I am not a believer in this, and the evidence supports my stance. The evidence does not support the stance of the true believers. And this is why we need the parallel media, because we have our own body of research and of what you could say a case we've made. You know, we are accusing the mass media of fabricating events, passing them off as real, entering them into the historic record, therefore writing our history as we go. This is true for every PSYOP. That's what they're actually doing. Every stage shooting, every fake terror attack goes into the history books as reported on TV. Each of these is planned in advance. Therefore, you can argue that, yeah, they can totally fake history. They're not just faking news, they're faking history. And this event was planned decades ago. Kubrick directed it. This character Trump, who just got the fake head wound, was being simulated or predicted and foreshadowed in movies before he got into politics and took the political positions he did. Again, I would have you look at Machete, the scene where Danny Trejo's character is shooting Robert De Niro. De Niro's playing Trump, but he's playing a Trump that didn't exist in 2010. He was playing a future Trump. That shows you that it was a role that he was put into. Blood Raven says it was strange the crowd didn't seem to really panic and scatter. The people behind him would necessarily have been a part of it. They don't have witnesses to staged events. I mean, it's a magic show, it's a magic trick, but they want to limit the number of potential real witnesses, so you have to consider it to be a closed movie set from a certain perspective. I'm sure this event looks small to me. I have to say that. It was one of the smallest Trump rallies I've ever seen. And one more point. January 6th was a simulated riot. There weren't real people there fighting the cops. The simulated melee started before Trump's speech even ended. Before it even ended. And it was a 45-minute walk from the Ellipse to the Capitol, which means that they were already engaged in their simulated combat long before any non-agent, non-actor could have arrived there. Ashley Babbitt's not dead. And a lot of the same people who are part of the Ashley Babbitt PSYOP are there behind Trump. Truman B says Russell Brand was in Milwaukee this week performing a comedy gig. Okay. Let's see. I haven't really followed him. He's got a copy of Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and it's been on his bookshelf for like 10 years in the background, and you can tell he's never moved it. Although he's got a 33 tattooed on his wrist. Whatever that means. Okay, let's move on. We're going through my Minds.com account. Thine ears shall bleed. Again, that came out on 7/9. So if you're on team, this was a real event, you have a lot of explaining to do. You have to explain at least 30 different instances of programming that led the collective psyche to accept Trump's event as real. Russell Brand was baptized. Oh yeah, I remember that. I was like, I hope they warned the EPA and all the animals downstream. Yeah, Russell Brand's going to be baptized in these waters. Who knows what came off of that individual? But he's another one of these right-wing fakers. He's faking a conversion to Christianity, just like Candace Owens. I don't believe any of them. They're all soulless prostitutes for the alt media, controlled opposition, clickbait, echo chambers, and it's all clickbait these days. I mean, 1 minute Candace Owens is ranting about her love of Hitler. Hitler's not a bad guy. She gets a lot of clicks. Then the next week she's like, NASA was started by Satanists and they all worship Satan. Look at Jack Parsons. Gets a lot of clicks. And then nobody remembers it a few days later. It's amazing how they can speak the truth and then it goes away. And it's because the media and alt media are reality wood chippers. They take reality and they chop it up into mulch. They take facts, take them out of context, drown them out with sensationalist claims, and they don't lead anybody anywhere. Kuwabera91 says, would you be willing to debate Chalk? Yeah, if he wants to debate on the basis that the media is not lying, I would happily be willing to debate this. I'd be willing to ask, I'd ask other questions, like, do you believe that January 6th was real? Are you mourning Ashley Babbitt too? You think that fireman actually died? I mean, that's a whole can of worms. It's not just this one event. You have to look at it in context. But yeah, I'd be willing to debate. I'm willing to debate that we have the right model. That media is not what they think it is. And that the PSYOP entertainment complex exists. And that we have been accurate enough in our assessment to go ahead and just say it bluntly that predictive and concurrent programming are part of a contiguous operation to propagandize the masses for this fake history that they perform for us. That it's all a PSYOP and it's all fake. Yeah, let's definitely debate that. I mean, I'd be willing to hear somebody's argumentation, for defending it, because the best you can come up with is, I don't know how they could have faked it. But again, go watch Chris Angel levitate. Go watch David Copperfield. Turns out he's a total groper and a perv. But Dave Copperfield does some trick. If you can't figure out how it was done, or you can be like, wow, it's magic. I can't figure out how the media did this, therefore it's magic. I can't figure out how a reality TV show star, 9/11 PSYOP insider, presidential candidate, which means he knows a bit about how fake everything is, with the background in World Wrestling Entertainment theatrics, no way he could fake this stuff. I mean, come on. Okay, I guess we've covered quite a lot of ground. We'll see what else. Woo's News. Let's get Woo's News in on this. I'm curious. Woo's News hit a home run with January 6th. I'd be very curious to see if he's carrying on in that same direction with every other event. Tangled U.S. flag resembling an angel has the internet convinced Trump was protected by God. Now this is to put everything into a... Now this is so interesting too. On the one hand, God saved him. He made an angel out of a flag and protected him. And they're all like, God saved him. On the other hand, doesn't God warn us about the leader who survives a head wound on TV? It's like, it's the same Bible, right? It's the same God. So why would God protect the Antichrist? Is he protecting the Antichrist? It's very convoluted. Half of MAGA, I say not half, the QAnon wing of MAGA worship Trump because they think he's Christ. Oh, okay. Kua Bear 91 says Chalk said he used to be an IPS fan until he became a born-again Christian. Well, Christianity, in my opinion, is part of the control structure which we now call mass media. The mass media is the default world state church. The Bible is old school fake news. Every holy book is a reality filter. The latest holy book is called the iPhone, the smartphone, the black monolith. But if you're going to have a religious paradigm, you might see these things in that context, and that's a whole other program. For example, the shooting now might take on more significance. Oh yeah, 6/11, Ephesians 6:11, God protected him. And now what? Now you're worshiping Trump? But that's fine. I don't think you can be a truther, and I mean, you can be, but what I'm saying is that you're not going to be objectively rooted in reality if you have a belief system. I advocate rejecting belief systems. I'm not telling people what to think, but I'm saying be a knower and a seeker. Have questions and answer them. Don't just be a collector of questions and a mystifier of facts, which is where truthers are. They equate asking questions like, is my toaster going to kill me? That's not a valid question. Find an answer. Look it up. No, it's not going to kill you. Is the 5G tower going to kill me? That's not a valid question if you haven't made an attempt to answer it on your own. And that's what we do here. So we're not simply confused people with lots of questions. No, we're actively seeking answers to know what is knowable instead of merely settling for belief based on some authority. And I think all belief systems, religious systems, are all part of the mind control designed to depose you as the final arbiter of what you think. But again, I don't care if people are religious. It's none of my business. You know, I hope you didn't get baptized downstream from where Russell Brand got baptized. Okay, moving on. We've covered quite a bit. I'll open up phones tomorrow. We'll probably have a lot more to cover up, but there are just so many good examples here that we have to really take a stance here that this is all staged and fake. So however they pulled off the actual magic trick is immaterial. Look at these comparisons. Here's Trump with his Braveheart raised fist, and now it's compared to the Veteran Marine War Memorial. All the SS are leaning at the same angle, the flags similarly positioned. But then you can also compare it to the raising of the flag at Ground Zero or the flag on the moon. Like, these are too iconic. It's too perfect. Does life imitate predictive programming? No. Life does not imitate predictive programming. PSYOPs do. This is not real life. This is a PSYOP. Anyway, thank you all for joining. We'll continue this conversation very soon. Get on the newsletter, ips.monster. I'm going to make it my priority over the next couple of weeks. Actually, starting now, we're going to bring down the ISS, beginning with an ISS observation next week. I'll drop details in the newsletter, so keep an eye on your inbox. ISS is next. Immediately after, we're going to get into the business of promoting Autohoaxology 101 and growing this think tank into the parallel media. And the parallel media right now, it's just us. However, there is an unrecognized demand for what we're doing, and there are a lot of people who are not here because they've just by habit have been filtered in behind, filtered to these various controlled opposition propaganda influencers. And I think we can shake a lot of that up just based on the skeptical approach. A skeptical, rational analysis of the propaganda leads you to this conclusion ultimately. But again, alt media is not skeptical, and woke media is triggered, and Normieville is apathetic. All right, this is Autohoaxology by Symbia. I will put a link below.
I don't believe in chemtrails, I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill. don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, auto hooks and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to lose a naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I've stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of Hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading out of Hoaxology. Nothing can bother me out of Hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of Hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I stab the backs of deceivers, demanding burdens for the proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading auto hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, auto hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading auto hoaxology, suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing, crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death